Barcarolle is a musical form of the Boatman song, basically a Gondoliera's song. I'll let you decide what that's about. Barcarolle. You worry about the eye, the microphone in it that gathers and transmits daughter sounds. Her infant coos, the soft rustle, cry, unrecoverable gasp, the dread deep stillness. Every day with her in your new life is a scratch of light in some future impenetrable darkness. You and this little plastic receiver downstairs, the monitor the size and shape of a bar of soap, navigating invisible extremes, soaking up the impulses of your room as if this would prevent anything bad from happening. You wipe the baby monitor off with a wet cloth. You turn the volume up and down. You want to throw it away, but you don't dare. Okay, so you and Charlotte started late. You probably won't have another child. You won't try. The little girl, even before they told you she was a girl, she'd screened well in all the tests, the proteins in the blood, the DNA strands, all the months leading up. The testing told you just enough to see that it told you too little. It promised only the next step of unknowns. Doctors kept reminding you of risks, their tone mildly punitive. You'd started so late. Risks that leave you ignorant, risks mysterious and risks misunderstood, strands of matter that have no premonition, blindsided, fuzzy matter a microscope can't possibly clarify. The geneticist's statistics, her mousy little blood tubes and protein swabs, the vast open darkness beyond her dots and dashes, percentiles and ratios, life extended beyond spreadsheets and pie graphs, beyond age-based probability curves. Your life ends. Everyone knows everyone's life ends. But how life begins and how life continues, you're in your 40s, afraid of a few decades. And it has a curve, viability, risks. This is what the geneticist said. Not in so many words. What did she know about you? You have the eye, the little microphone. It's one of the newer ones. The video screen switches from color in the daylight to an underwater infragreen when the room is dark. Charlotte is due a week, they say. She's a little late. The room remains empty. Upstairs, the eye draws the bedroom's foreign agents into its little optical chip. The clicks and scrapes and ambient smudges. What's there before the baby? The eye hears the world beyond the window, pushing through the window glass. Cars pass, trees bristle. They sometimes seem to whisper words you can make out. A branch ticks with a frequency determined by gusts against the glass. Birds chirp when the sun rises, and sometimes scream later in the afternoon. The same passing siren, the same passing shout, the same passing shudder of a truck, the unnameable passing. What the tiny monitor speaker duplicates, its doppelganger transmitted downstairs through the window beside you. The natural and artificial world as one, fused with your infant daughter's empty room. At night, or very early in the dark of the morning, sitting there downstairs, you have to resist believing the screen is a projection of the afterlife. And then she's born. Charlotte and the infant pass through the birth, 8 hours of uncertainty, though it moves steadily and without surprises, and they're okay. It's all okay. 2 days rest in the hospital, and you pack her up and bring her home to her room. You and Charlotte have many books which promise to help guide you, help you understand. You've learned, for example, that she cannot yet produce tears. Tears come later. Your daughter is unusually quiet the first few weeks, and despite the books and assurances from the pediatrician, you worry. The only truth is the voice inside your soul, a universal father worry, an instinctual ache. The silence keeps you up at night, waiting for her to cry, to need a changing, a feeding. And then soon, when the sounds do come, they satisfy the minimum fatherly threshold of concern. So good, fine. And then she's making a lot of sounds, the squeaking and gurgling, and the occasions when she laughs. Your daughter fills your sleeping and waking lives. She populates the dark matter of your unconscious as much as the lit oculars and saturated colors of your conscious life. Weeks pass, she develops tears. The coffee is set on a timer, finishing its final clucks and gasps just as you come downstairs each morning. You write. You are a writer. It's a peaceful time this time of the morning. Even before the kid, this was the peaceful time. Even in the summer when the morning light comes much earlier, you wake in the yet dark. The birds are still sleeping. You glance over, your daughter asleep and green in the night vision of the camera, her tiny body a shadow cast in a wash of gray turquoise, as if underwater, as seen through some bathoscath with a limited hold for oxygen. She'll stir, and a sound will come from the speaker, a heightened sort of murk and static, then you'll check the screen. The green shape twists, then settles. And when the infant begins to cry, you hear Charlotte rise from bed upstairs. You hear her. You hear her feet on the floor above, padding into the infant's bedroom. And on the baby monitor's green screen, two shadow arms reach down and lift the glowing shape of your daughter away. And all that is left is that impossibly empty clutter of space. Only the sound of your wife now, cooing, comforting, and the static of the eye. And you suddenly understand every animal. In early morning, downstairs at the kitchen table in the dark, same as any other morning, the light outside begins to flush out the sky. You feel the quiet, the lack, the suggestion that something is wrong. But you have this feeling, it's just the silence. In the screen, a glowing angelic green framed in the dark light. You return to your work. The usual birds wake and sing, their song transmitted in the monitor's tinny unison with the window beside you. You'll recall this later, the quiet just before the scream. The little body framed in green begins not to stir so much as fall into a throttle of cries and gasps. Charlotte's feet above on the ceiling pad into the room. You wait for the usual quieting, glance at the baby monitor. Your wife's arms extend into the frame and the baby is lifted, and now there is only that pregnant space. In that moment, the screen switches from infragreen to faint color. You hear your wife pacing in the room. The screaming doesn't stop. You turn down the volume of the baby monitor. You get up and pour another coffee. The screaming grows convulsive. You continue to reassure yourself. You're a father, this is uncertainty. Then you hear her, your wife, say in a dead and distracted moan, "Oh God." And it's the voice of a stranger, as if a stranger has entered the room. Upstairs, the dry light in the room glares back at you. It's as if you've never seen this room before. What room is this? A room where blood is on your wife's hands, all over the t-shirt she'd been sleeping in, on the floor? Your wife holds your daughter, blood flowing from her little nose, washing her face. "Call them," she says. And you don't know why you say, "Who? Call who?" And she says, "Are you fucking kidding?" She hands you your daughter, and you hold her while she dials the pediatrician's office. An answering service answers. It's too early. The person on the phone forwards the message to a physician who calls back quickly, perhaps though every second has expanded something inside you. Your wife is describing the moment. She's talking, listening, repeating what the phone is telling her. You set the infant in the bassinet and lean over her, watching the rise and fall of the screaming. And then you lift her and she goes quiet in your hands. Your wife speaking, mediating space. She repeats what you can barely hear from the little voice coil on the phone. Nosebleed, nothing to be concerned, dry air, the season, fever capillaries in her nose, more sensitive, and you're holding your daughter. Your daughter is silent, and now the bleeding has stopped. Then, quite suddenly, she begins convulsing. Charlotte sees this. She throws the phone on the floor. A piece of the plastic spat out from the receiver like a lip from the voice scratching now against the floor. You notice the eye. It's still staring at the bed. Your daughter in your hands. You want to smash the plastic eye. But your daughter, she's in your hands. At the hospital, her fever drops, rises a bit, then drops and steadies. The doctor says it's just a fever. The doctor explains a nosebleed, as the physician on call had earlier. The seizures too, these happen, she says. It's just a fever, a certain predisposition, but it happens all the time, really it does. We'll wait until she stabilizes and then send you home. They'll keep an eye on her. The doctor admits nothing is 100%. But this is common, there's so little to worry about. The doctor leaves you there staring through a window at your daughter. There she is, inside a tiny plastic bassinet, a transparent shell covering it like a pill, a line running down from a half-deflated bag of saline, passing through the pill, taped to her ruddy arm. Everything in miniature. She's wrapped in a warming blanket that recalls the same blanket they'd wrapped her in after she was born. You stand with your wife and watch. You take her into your mind now as the eye would. You feel no impulse to ever move again. That evening, Charlotte suggests you go home for a while. A couple of hours, she says. You go first. Let's take shifts. Maybe take a nap, sleep for a while. But really, just get out a bit. You first. We'll be okay. On the way home, you pull into the lot of a convenience store. The light in the store shines into the car, the fluorescence fragile and brittle, ticking. You had quit smoking so many years ago that you have almost forgotten you ever had a habit. But here you are asking for a pack of smokes, the old kind, the Luckies. You glance up at the security camera, then see behind the clerk your own fish-eyed image on an old gray television monitor. In it, you are a stranger. You look old, somehow childless. You take a free pack of matches, then buy a lighter for its reassurance. You step outside and stand in the lot, staring into the dark beyond the light of the store. You light the cigarette and inhale, smoke passing into your throat and lungs like a ghost, its taste in your throat. You move from the light to a darker patch in the lot beside a propane cage and a row of weed bushes. Above, attached to the overhang of the roof of the convenience store, there is a camera pointing down at the parking lot. The smoke rises around your head in a blue-gray. Now several ghosts circulate inside you, a series of memories triggered by some mnemonic of sensory reintroduction, fragments of your past, a drunken argument with a stranger outside a bar in New Orleans, a failed sexual encounter, sand singing as it's compressed underfoot at a Hamptons beach, the moment at a high school dance where you leaned over and tasted the perfume on the neck of the girl beside you. All of the cells that compose you begin to shift and muddle and dizzy, rearranging your blood and oxygen and memory. You smoke the cigarette half down and feel a little sick, so you toss the cigarette onto the sidewalk and scrape it under your shoe. You stand there, dizzy. You've forgotten where you are and why. And here, in forgetfulness, your daughter and wife are at home, safe, and you feel guilty for smoking. The camera above, watching. Then the fear remembers you, draws you back to the moment. You pass through the parked cars, cross the lot to your own car, open the door, climb inside. You sit for a moment and smell the cigarette, lingering in the silence. Then you turn the key and pull out of the lot. Nothing on the drive home looks the way it was. The windshield, as if viewed through the baby monitor. You mistrust your eyes, the familiar things about your neighborhood, as if they're new. These sycamores, maples, and oaks are dim and foreign. The yield and stop signs, the turnoff, the shops, and even the houses. You pull into the driveway, and it's as if the house has been empty for months while you and your wife were away vacationing. You take a shower, avoiding the baby's room as you pass it upstairs. You recall the blood. The shower passes through your skin, and then you turn the water off, dry yourself and dress, and come downstairs. You toast some bread and fry an egg, then sit down at the kitchen table and eat. You don't feel tired, not at all, and this, for some reason, sends a pang of guilt through you, too. You light another cigarette, tap the ash on the empty mess of the plate. Outside it is dark still. You glance over at the time on the little digital display of the coffee maker, then turn away before taking it in. The kitchen is silent, and then you concentrate on the silence, and the refrigerator begins to hum, and you think you hear water flowing. The thermostat ticks, and the hot water boiler rumbles alive below you in the basement. And then you hear her in the baby monitor, in the room upstairs, stirring. The solitary chirp and tick of a sparrow comes distorted inside the speaker along with her, distant, drawing out the space of the room, but you hear her, too, before the room falls silent. You can't look at the baby monitor as if there's some kind of curse living in this, and instead you sit there, stare at the ash and yolk on your plate, and see now that you haven't eaten anything. You recall eating this egg, this toast. But there they are, untouched. The yolk and a patch of butter peppered now with cigarette ashes. A blackbird laughs in the baby monitor, and then a twig begins ticking against the air conditioner in her window. And you hear another stirring, softer, human. You hear your daughter. She cries out upstairs, the sound captured in the eye, the microphone, passed to you through the baby monitor. Her familiar cluck, then a gurgle. Now you look at the green screen and you see her shape, the imprint of her body on the mattress, just a slight dip, a blank of her prior shadow, one of her blankets twisted at the edge of the green frame. The birds chirping now, the sparrows. The blackbird farther calls. You hear another blackbird respond, laughing at you. The doctor said something about 100%, that nothing was. Your daughter rustles again in the crib, no differently than when you've sat here any other time, alone in the dark while the morning eases forth. She lets out a little sing-song. She's waking. A delivery truck shudders past here and there. The green screen of the intercom's receiver is lying, as if whispering to you. There in the little green frame, the imprint of her body, her twisted blanket. You pause at the top of the stairs, where there's only a dry silence ahead down the hall. A few more steps, and you pause now outside her door. She has gone back to sleep, that's what you think. Her door is half shut. You are caught in a liminal space, and you press it open. The room is empty. The air is still and smells like nothing. It smells not even like your daughter. She's gone. Her unmistakable scent, which you only now realize has ever existed, has left with her. The sheets of the crib, the imprint of her body, the twisted blanket. You think to strip the bed, to put the sheets in the laundry, to do something useful, but then you lose the imprint of her body. Blood on the floor and on the bassinet. You strip the cloth cover of the bassinet. The sheets have dried and held a stiff shape, the blood. You bring these to the laundry down the hall, then return to her room. A little wind picks up. The branch ticks against the window like fingertips. Once she gets better, you'll weatherize the glass. Her things are gathered and scattered around, little toys. She'll outgrow everything here. A pacifier has fallen out of her crib. You pick it up from the floor. Another truck shudders past outside. You return downstairs holding the pacifier. You put on your shoes, your coat. You open the front door, step outside, and lock the door behind you, and you drive back to the hospital. Later, when your daughter is released from the hospital, the event of her illness will begin the slow process of fading, if not ever leaving, memory. It will remain just beyond the liminal space you occupy. A constant, quiet anxiety on the other side of clarity, of immediacy. Your anxieties will learn and adapt. The crows laugh as they laugh, and the sparrows age and die, replenished like everything like the seasons. Your hair is thinning, graying. Her voice on the intercom grows a morning older every morning. The vowels and hard edges, and soon her words find meaning. Language softens and turns fluid. A wife and a daughter, you think, a wife and a daughter. Until sometime later, you don't think about what you once heard coming from the eye. Don't think so much about that early morning when she was in the hospital, when you heard her whether you wanted to or not. Now she's outgrown this crib, and you bought her a bed, and this too she outgrows. You took down the baby monitor long ago, donated it to a local charity. What do you see now? You have a mind's eye now. Sometimes you see her gone off to college. You imagine her wedding. These haven't happened, not yet, but you know they will. You imagine the house empty. You watch these iterations of her leaving, and the moment before each, this is what you feel, that moment just before when she still was. You see the moment before each was as a gift, a premonition in which she is fine, she's okay. Everyone has told you to cherish these years, the early ones, the years that will be gone before you know it. And then, sooner than you believe, everything you heard was true. Here's All right, this was written before I had a kid. This is a side story. Okay. I saw the mumbler downstairs once, alone on one of these nights when I could not sleep. It was late because you have trouble sleeping and you let it bother you. Let the sleep hover just out of grasp of your closed eyes. And when the sleep vanishes from the room, it leaves a coil in its place. It keeps tightening. And there you are in your bed, hating the air as if it were invading you. As if it were trying to thin you, trying to make you less than you already are. I came down the stairs to find his tiny frame in the kitchen, standing and whispering an argument as if with a spirit. In one hand he held a sandwich, the refrigerator motor rubbing behind him like a cicada, the mechanical sound you hear only alone late at night, a sound that draws out the nothing of the air, a sound twinned to stammering fluorescent lights, the meat freezer chuckling occasionally in the basement. I stood in the stairway and for a long time watched his stick-like arms making little votive patterns in the kitchen, sandwich flapping from his puny fucking hand. I thought maybe he was trying to communicate through the wall to the elk that had trapped itself in our yard. This winter, a bull elk jumped over the fence of our backyard. The fence had pulled down under the weight of a blizzard several days before. And the elk must have kicked away some of the snow in the jump because the fence raised and he could not get back out. Hang-eyed and crazy-looking, his maw broken open and pasted with white saliva, none of us wanted to go near him, so we just left him there inside our yard. He threw himself against the fence, splintering the cedar until the left rail of his antlers snapped and hung from him like the branch of a mangled tree. Then that horn fell off, and he pounded and bloodied the wood of the fence with his forehead, rolling his eyes, soon matched and multiplied in the white and brown spotted markings of his hide. The blood made dull circles on the fence, went deep with aureoles of ochre. At times, you could look out at the yard outside and almost believe the animal was no longer there, when in fact he had begun only to blend into everything patterned, the brown and red and yellow he'd pounded his head into. And then you saw the yard flinch. That first day, the mumbler stared out the back window as if trying to reflect onto the bull elk whatever mood he suspected was sending into our house through airwaves. Hate or spite, probably one of the two. He mumbled something about bringing the son of a bitch down with his rifle, then something else about not being able to shoot since they took away his guns. We never understood who they were, and we did not know what he meant when he said that elk bode ill on us all, and that this was no less than we had coming. Or when he said that we had murdered off all the pleasures of his life. He had said many peculiar things. He said there existed bad numbers and bad names of streets, streets whose names rhymed with the names of women. He would drive a mile out of his way to avoid these names. He had songs you couldn't sing along with, songs whose pitches over time you didn't dare try to hit, even if he would allow it. We didn't understand any of our father anymore, but it didn't matter. He had lost his hold. After the bull elk was trapped in our yard, a man named Desmond was fired from the factory I work at. This by itself is not worth mentioning, but the fact of his being fired had appeared to set me inside his sights. They accused him of theft, I believe. And Desmond offered my name when asked certain questions. They called me in. I told them I hadn't done anything wrong and that I did not know Desmond well enough to speak anymore on the subject. You could see Desmond had been drinking. It didn't help his case, standing in front of his accusers, swaying forward, breathing that stale breath into the office. I felt nothing when they fired him. I didn't know him, and I didn't understand his logic. For some time after, Desmond would park his car across the road from our house and leave the engine running in the cold. He would sit and drink from a small bottle and stare at our front door. At times he would drive past the house and circle the block. Then he would drive past again. After a time, the car stopped coming by at all. We let the elk have reign of the yard. He did all right for a while. He would tear free dead branches from the surrounding trees or anger himself at our fence, cantering around in the snow, stupid and trapped and acting out over his inability to solve the problems of his animal life. His half set of horns caused his head to favor slightly to the right. When he ate up all he could from our trees, every branch and dry, frozen dead leaf within reach, we joked and said we might have to send the mumbler out there, give that animal something to pick at. We could say things like this now, even if our father had not yet taken to the idea that he was diminished. I could trace the origin of his shrinking to a time soon after our mother left, the first point back to where we could remember anything, really, only a pin of light in the dark. When she left, we didn't see him for several days, only heard him padding around the ceiling above. His murmuring and his moaning continued often into the night and would keep us awake. And now we could surround him, if this was our pleasure, lean well over him, and soon enough he'd stop singing his songs. I came downstairs another night, hoping that I might find our father eating a sandwich and mumbling to spirits again. But he wasn't there. I noticed that the back glass door had steamed over, and then saw clarified through it the outline of the elk's nostrils, his big muzzle pressed, flexing and bubbling a fluid under the runny glass. I came closer until I stood on the other side of the back glass door. His eyes examined mine, and suddenly I felt scared, as if my blood was running away. This feeling gathered itself up in me, and certain unspoken disgraces revealed themselves in that window, as if the glass were able to play out my past, the petty larcenies, the assaults and theft, the disappointments of a girl I imagined I once knew, the several lies I imagined I had told for no good reason. All, as it pulled from some hole-bitten filthy sack in my memory and placed into a stereopticon before me. I mouthed the words for each sin I could name as the feeling came to me in the window, and saw a motion out in the middle of the yard, back where the fence had first tipped down and welcomed our elk in. I stood there most of the night waiting to see it again, but never did. In daylight, the bull elk began to look stretched over its bones like a failed taxidermy. What remained of him was shearing away. The skin around his maw had pulled back above his teeth. He didn't seem real. He looked like a decoy or a well-rendered cartoon. Then one day he collapsed in the yard. His ribs rose and fell and sent steam rising off the snow. Only a few minutes earlier we had watched him tear a piece of siding from the house and try to chew it. This brought the mumbler down from our mother's room. He walked past us, his voice rubbing, speaking what sounded like some new language he learned late at night from the motor of the refrigerator, and went outside in his bare feet. He crossed the snow over to the animal and kneeled, appearing to speak into its ear for some time. He put his face up to its muzzle tenderly and tried to part its maw with his hands, his little gray shape bobbing over its huge head. It looked as if he wanted to climb inside the animal, crawl down its throat, and take lodging in the dying warmth. On the ground, the animal's haunches lunged, kicked out a couple of times, but it was too weak to do much else. Steam from their mouths filled the air around them. When our father came back inside, he didn't speak, just backed slowly up the stairs. We didn't know what he meant to do. One of us observed that he was wearing Mother's nightgown, which hung from him now like a parachute. We heard his pacing coming down through the floorboards above. The following day, the elk was gone. We assumed it had pulled some reserve of strength from somewhere and perhaps discovered a way out of our yard. This seemed unlikely, but we couldn't explain it any other way. Days passed, and the snow kept drifting down, and the elk's tracks in the last place we had seen it rest on the ground went white and smoothed over. I suppose we forgot about the animal. One day I came home from work. Excuse me. One day I came home from work and found a plain brown package outside, tipped against the door. It was heavy and didn't have a postmark or a return address written on it. I unwrapped the butcher paper and found a tongue. Thank you. One second. It's hard trying to sound like a psycho for 20 minutes. One day I came home from work and found a plain brown package outside, tipped against the door. It was heavy and didn't have a postmark or a return address written on it. I unwrapped the butcher paper and found a tongue, large like a cow's, but thinner and longer. A couple dozen bolts fell out of the bloody paper, leaving small red stars on the linoleum floor. I recognized the bolts as number 3s from work. A few days later, another package arrived, then several others. Almost every day they came, a cleaved hoof, frozen, more or less, with some meat sprouting from the cut joint above the knee. A package of long, bloody teeth, a couple of them shattered. His ears came with the last package. Desmond stayed inside his trailer at first. I saw that someone had already smashed milky spiderwebs in his car's windows. Around back, the skinned elk was slung over the side of Desmond's well by its hind legs. I saw the sockets of the ears, the one torn stump through the leg, the red hollow of its gutted mouth. Desmond came out finally once my brothers began to cut down the carcass. but he only stood in the snow halfway between his trailer's butane tank and his well, with the animal hanging from it, the elk we had come to think of as ours. I wrestled Desmond down onto the snow with me, held him while my brothers took the elk down from the well. Desmond had gone very light. He felt almost brittle to the touch. He felt like the husk of a large insect rather than a living person. His eyes close up seemed to be running on some reserved current, seemed to be shooting off sparks deep inside. I could hear his breath working unevenly in my face, like someone dying from an illness in the lungs. Desmond didn't move from beneath me as my brothers cut the animal down. I could smell mint soured on his breath. When I heard my brothers unhinge the elk from the well and then drag and load it into the back of the pickup truck, I rose and left Desmond there in the snow. We drove away, two up front, the other and myself in the pickup bed. The animal's three remaining legs propped up and bound, pink and sinuous like giant pearled sticks of taffy. My arm slung over the one leaden stump gripping its slippery ice. We feasted on the elk's flesh, gray even to the taste, throughout the winter. It seemed the snow wouldn't ever stop falling. I heard Desmond pull himself together, left Monee, went north, and was swallowed into Chicago. God bless. And later this winter, when all the meaning left our father and he shrank finally to the size of a cheap doll, we put him in with our mother's things for good. We propped him up, fed him with toys, silver, and china, made certain he was comfortable. He sat and chattered and drank his tea while my brothers and I waited for the inevitable, which is all anybody can ask of family. Thank you.